I'm Lyndon Bradshaw, queen of chaos, destruction, and happiness, and I'm here to announce to you, drum roll please. Did you drum roll? Okay. The Seattle Pride has their own quarterly magazine called Seattle Pride Magazine that you can pick up at your local queer business, favorite ones, and your local coffee shops. And if you don't want to do either of those, you can download it at seattlepride.org. I know that I downloaded it, and I'm going to go to my local coffee shop and pick it up, and I'm going to go to my favorite local queer business and pick it up as well. Thank you for being here today. We love everyone. Have a good day.
Their name and their pronouns that they use, if you wouldn't mind. I'll start. I'm Jackie, and I'm she, her, hers.
I'm Tigra, Slarai, they, them, pickle.
You say pickle?
Yeah, pickle.
Work.
I'm so dead serious.
Work. I'm Jeremy, or Jeremy. I prefer Jeremy, but I know people are gonna call me Fifi, but he, him, his.
Britta, her.
All right, when you started. Please mute your phones.
I'm not using my computer. I'm using my roommate's because I broke mine. So let me try and figure out how to.
You better have a Beyonce fan, bitch. I hate you.
I'm not putting in my AC yet. I refuse to. I got all the show fans on this.
Hi, my name is Jackie Huba, founder and executive director of Drag Out the Vote. Drag Out the Vote is a nonpartisan nonprofit whose mission is to educate, register, and turn out voters with the art and activism of drag. We are excited to be presenting a panel on drag and activism today with some amazing artists. Let's meet our panelists. I will give them an introduction. Our first panelist is Tigra Soleil, and they are a fierce, multifaceted talent from Minneapolis, Minnesota. As a Black, trans, non-binary, adoptee, and sexual assault survivor, they use their life experience to make the world a more inclusive place. Tigra left a career in the medical field to make a tangible difference in the world. They work in the community for anti-racism in the trans queer community, is a social justice dialogue facilitator, community advocate, and a mentor to many queer and trans youth. The organizations they've worked with include Out From Minnesota, Trans Chance Health, PFLAG, Nebraska AIDS Project, and I Am She, He Is Me. Welcome so much, Tigra.
Hey.
Hey, glad to have you.
Thank
Let's
you.
move on to Jeremy. Carrie. Jeremy is a drag performer, transformation artist, actor, singer, known for placing as runner-up on RuPaul's Drag Race Season 4, appearing on RuPaul's Drag Race All-Star Season 2, guest judging the Boulay Brothers Dragula. Jeremy organized the Queens United Benefit for Puerto Rico in 2017, raising $80,000 for hurricane relief efforts alongside a star-studded lineup of drag performers. Since then, Jeremy has helped to organize Drag Out the Vote's first activation in 2020, an event in Minneapolis, and serves as a national co-chair for Drag Out the Vote. Welcome, Jeremy.
Hi. That's me.
And next up, Britta Filter. Britta is a drag queen from New York City, appearing in Shade, Queens of New York, and RuPaul's Drag Race Season 12. Britta made headlines at the 2019 Women's March in Washington, D.C., breaking out in an impromptu performance as a response to anti-LGBTQ protesters. She earned the title of New York City Entertainer of the Year at the 2018 Annual Glam Awards, and currently champions the message of Drag Out the Vote as a national co-chair of the organization. Welcome, Britta.
Yes, hi. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so grateful to be part of this.
Yeah. All right. Thank you all. I do want to tell our viewers that we are recording this video on June 5th. And so we do want to acknowledge what is happening in the world right now. We are coming up on 10 days of protests for the murder of George Floyd and in support of the Black Lives Matter movement. We stand in solidarity with those protesting. So before we start our general discussion about drag and activism, we wanted to talk about current events and what is happening right now. So wanted to ask you how you're doing and how have you been involved in what's going on right now. And I wanted to direct this first to Tigra because you are in Minneapolis.
I'm coping as well as I can possibly do. It's kind of a hard situation to be in, especially when you're mentally trying to be helpful and be informational, also while trying to educate and still be visible on the front lines. I protested all last week, and then this weekend I took a break. And I actually, as me and you talked before, I just got home yesterday because I stayed in a hotel for a week because I live right by the 4th police precinct, right up the block, and there was too much police traffic on my block, and it was just mentally draining to put myself in a position of being out on my porch, trying to see what's going on, being told I have to be in the house. So it's been mentally draining, and the way I'm coping is just, trying to do things around the house, loving on my pets, loving on my fiance, and still trying to engage with my community as well as I can on my social platform.
Appreciate that. Jeremy, Britta, what's going on?
On my end of things, I mean, obviously, just like everyone else who going through all of this is, it's sad. It's so sad that it's happening, but I'm so happy that this is happening. Like this has been something that has needed to happen for such a long time. And, I think with the pandemic and everyone just being in their houses and finally this happens, that it gives people a reason. Nobody is working right now, and people want to stand up for justice and as they should, and they're doing all over the world. I'm so proud of people and for people to have conversations. I think that's the amazing thing about this, is that everyone is kind of stuck at home. I personally can't go out and protest just because of my pre-existing conditions, and it would be really bad things would happen if she were to get that coronavirus. So I'm doing all the work that I can from my house, having talks online with people on social media, and especially just coming off of Drag Race. I mean, there's a lot of eyes on me. So I think it's important to stand up for what's right and to have these conversations with not only your family, but even fans. Normally I would just block a person, but I'm now it's not about my them being mean to me on Drag Race. Now it's about racism, and it's about the Black community, and we have to educate. And instead of blocking people, I'm having these difficult conversations with them to hopefully drive some sense into them.
Right. Jeremy, you've been doing some things out in Brooklyn.
Yeah, so I marched on Wednesday, and that was for Breonna Taylor and obviously the Black Lives movement, Matters movement. But I was saying earlier that I was so grateful for the people on the sidelines. Obviously, everyone that's marching and protesting is absolutely freaking amazing, and it was so powerful to be in that moment and hear the echo of the chants just bouncing off the walls in New York City. It was just beautiful, and I was so proud to be a part of that. But to keep me going, there was people on the sidelines that were passing out like water and snacks and everything, and I was so grateful for them as well. So on Saturday, which would be tomorrow, we raised $3,000 already to pass out water and everybody masks and snacks to all the protesters. But so I'm really excited about that. But I have to touch base with what Britta said. I mentioned this before, and to you, Jackie, how it's so sad that all this had to happen, but 2020 needed to happen. We needed this COVID, and we needed people to lose their jobs, to stay at home, to make this happen, to have the voice in the streets. And it sucks. It really freaking sucks right now that we have to go through all this shit. But like, oh, we can bleep it, whatever. We have to go through all this. But I genuinely feel that change is happening. We're fed up, we're tired, and I'm excited to be a part of it.
That's awesome. And I think President Obama had a really great statement earlier when he first started, the first statement he did earlier this week, where he put out this call to say, the protests raise awareness for issues, but then the second part of it is that we have to vote, because that's the only way that actually things get changed. So how do you think we can stress the importance of voting while still raising our voices at protests?
Well, I think people protest because they're not happy. They're not happy with the current situation and they want change. So I think in order to get that change, we have to go out and vote. And I think it's very apparent right now that so many people's voices are not being heard. And this is why things are happening right now. So I think people are finally seeing in this situation that their one vote makes a huge difference and can change the course of a lifetime.
Yeah, piggybacking off of what Jeremy said, like it really is helpful to remind people that as they're protesting, as they're out there using their voices, is that this is how we enact change, because that sometimes gets lost when we're so vocal on social media platforms and using our bodies as a way of knocking down these walls, that voting still happens to be one of the number one things, especially in America, and how we enact change. And I feel like sometimes that gets lost. So like the reminders are very, very helpful, because even though I'm registered to vote, you know, it will slip my head that that's the way that we're going to get change. Also, that being a helping point in the matter.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that it's so, I mean, again, piggybacking off of everything that they said, especially Jeremy, I think that all of this stuff was supposed to happen. Like all of this was meant to happen so that we could get change. There's so many people that, I mean, voting is so important that so many people didn't vote last year. I mean, 4 years ago, and in the last election, so many people didn't vote. And just speaking like specifically within our community, that 1 in 5 people out of our LGBTQIA plus community weren't registered to vote. And that is what like shakes me, especially certain people want to try and take away our rights, and especially now with everything going on. I mean, people just need to realize that I think it's putting the fire underneath their ass to make the change, and it's sad it had to come down to this, but I'm happy it did, because I think it's getting people more fired up to really do their job as a citizen. And I mean, and what this protest shows is that we are in control. And people need to realize that we are in control at the voting box too. So to get out there and vote, it's so important.
Yeah, I love that. Well, we're going to talk more about voting in the context of activism. So thank you for those comments. Let's move more to the general discussion. I think a lot of us like to say drag has always been political, since the Stonewall riots in 1969. Drag artists, including trans women of color, have been instrumental in the fight for LGBT equality. So in terms of drag artists using their platforms to speak out on terms of issues in the society, why do you think it's important for drag artists to do that? Anybody?
I think it's incredibly important, because essentially, like, we're like the leaders of our own little communities. I mean, all the gays come to the shows on the night that they know that's the show, and it's a large group of people. I mean, especially if you're on Drag Race. I mean, I didn't get to really experience it with large crowds, but I definitely I think it's important for us to use our voice when we have people in front of us, and especially make art that also reflects what's going on in the world. I think a lot of the times we do pieces that specifically will make people think. Not everything is going to be campy, but we also have audiences too, and especially with Drag Race now, people are listening to us. So I think it's an incredible platform that we have to be political, especially now.
Piggybacking off of what Britta said, I think we're a walking contradiction of exactly what the social norm is in the world. Our bodies, our voices, the act that we are part of the LGBT queer identity and experience, that's an act of protest on a day-to-day basis. You're going against that social norm that we're not so keen on being straight line into what's perfect for a lot of people, and that gives us that chance, especially what Britta was saying, the platforms of being at shows, to enact change, especially for the people who are coming in, who are sometimes more not a part of the queer community, more the allies, and more the people who are adjacent, who have never experienced this type of art before.
Yeah, and I drag is just inherently political. Like we're like Tiger said, it's basically it's a screw you to like the social norm, what you expect us to be, especially dressing up as a woman and female presenting is telling like everyone out there that like I will be who I want to be, I will wear what I want to be, and I will say what I want to be. And if I have that power for people to follow me and listen, then wonderful. We're staples and structures in this in the LGBTQ community, and I think we have a responsibility to value that position and do the most with it.
Awesome. Well, I think all of you are really role models in using your drag to be activists. And we kind of hit a little bit on that in your bios, but I wonder if each of you could just talk a little bit about, you know, how you used your drag in the past to stand up for things you believe in.
Well, I think it kind of like, sometimes we don't usually do it ourselves. People usually reach out to us as our positions in the community. Usually trans, non-binary, and drag queens, drag kings are the first people to protest or been asked to be a part of something to enact change and change people's mind. And I think it's that barrier of something that's so abnormal to people who haven't, you know, experienced this type of walk of life that goes in change of like a buffer for a lot of the social changes that we want in our world. I know for myself, like everything that I've done with, you know, Nebraska AIDS Project, Outfront Minnesota, PFLAG, I was asked. And I didn't think this was going to be a platform for me at all. Like I was in the medical field and I was just oblivious. I wasn't oblivious, but I just wasn't upfront about what I wanted to do because I just felt like there was enough room for everyone to do it. And it wasn't until I started to get highly discriminated for being a trans identified person that I wanted to do more of dismantling of the systems that I was a part of. And Out from Minnesota was one of the great foundations in Minneapolis that I was able to come into. And I thank Chad for that, because Chad does a lot of work where they're able to use their privilege in a way to getting not just the white people in the room to listen, but getting people in the community to listen and giving the platforms to people who want to enact change, the positions of power where they can do that change.
Yeah, and then just for folks who weren't aware of what you were saying there, you're referring to Chad Campy from Flip Phone Events, who is one of our partners who helped put together that big Minneapolis event, which was our kickoff in January with Jeremy and Queens United. And for those who don't know, the great work of Outfront Minnesota. Outfront Minnesota is one of the state equality organizations across the country. For a lot of folks, it's, you know, Equality Texas or Equality New York, and for Minnesota, it's Outfront Minnesota, right? And so they were all the folks who were registering voters at our event. So we love the work that they do as well. So Britta and Jeremy, same question in terms of how have you used your drag in the past to stand up for what you believe in?
I mean, for me, go ahead.
Okay. I mean, for me, it was, I honestly, I didn't realize the power that I had until I did my first march. And it was Marty Gold Cummings who asked me to do it. And this was right when Trump got elected. And I felt like it was my duty to do it. And I got into drag and I did it. And I just, the amount of people who were looking at me, who just saw essentially for me a 6'2" man in a giant wig and a beautiful costume. Like, you're not going to ignore the words that are coming out of my mouth when I'm protesting. Like when I'm protesting for Black Lives Matter, for our community, for trans lives, everything. So that was the first time that it really hit me. And then after that, I went on to do other things. I mean, Marty is the one who really turned me on, who's also another co-chair of Drag Out the Vote with us. And it just opened the door to so many other things. And that's why I've been so political lately with the Women's March that I did earlier on this year, and just fighting up back against the system who wants to either shut us up or take our rights away.
Yeah, and shout out to Marty Gold Cummings. They were protesting earlier this week, and they got arrested, and unfortunately they were injured. And so we hope that Marty is feeling better. I'm sure by the time this is broadcast that they will be. But yeah, we appreciate Marty's amazing work. The first, I believe, non-binary and drag artist who is running for New York City Council. And so we appreciate them using their platform. Jeremy.
For me, so I grew up in Texas. I'm not white. A lot of people think I am white just because I'm white presenting. I'm Filipino and Portuguese. But for me, as far as being white presenting, I didn't experience any of this. But what I did see is how they would treat people of color and living in San Antonio. So we had Mexicans, Black people. They just treated them like shit. And when I'm growing up in Texas, and this, it's really ignorant, but it's just my surroundings. You're taught that like, oh, that's just what it is. You know what I mean? And it's sad. And it took a lot of growing up. I remember the first time that I was able to vote, and my parents and I got into a huge argument because of who I decided to vote for. And it was like the first time things started to click, like, no, that's not right. That's not how this should be handled. And then I moved to Chicago and then now New York. But for me, it was like, I lived this entire life from a white passing privilege point of view that I never spoke up. I never said anything. And I didn't see people loud enough and with enough passion and heart to want to create change that I was like, let me do it. Let me, I will be that person. I have a very thick skin and they can say whatever they want to me, but I've always wanted to protect people. And maybe that comes from like the background that I had as a child and like abuse and stuff like this. I've dealt with a lot, but I want to be, and I will continue to be that voice for people that feel like they're not heard or they don't have representation, that it truly does get better. Because I feel it takes a lot more than a video, and it takes a lot more than just a little post to say it gets better. I want to show people that it truly does get better and stuff. So that's where drags and with Drag Race, that's how I use drag to catapult that.
And were you doing ththings before the 2017 Puerto Rico
I mean, I would do
fundraisers?
stuff like, I would do like women's marches. I was always political. I got involved with Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico because my husband's Puerto Rican, and my mother-in-law called and was in tears. And I was like, what's going on? Like, what's wrong? And she was crying because in Puerto Rico, if they're like up in the hills and everything, they weren't getting the attention, and things were blocked off, things were flooded, houses were gone, and she couldn't get in contact with her family, and she didn't know what to do. And I just felt so like, this is family. Like, what am I gonna, like, I need to do something. So it was like, it started with just one tweet, literally one tweet. And I was like, all right, Queens, who wants to do this? And again, Chad from Flip Phones was amazing. And I was like, let's do it. And so same thing with what Britta said about power. I've never felt more powerful in my life than when I realized like people are listening to me. People are listening, and if I can get them involved and care about people that aren't being heard, then fuck yes, like, you know what I mean? And so and I've never stopped since. So
Yeah, and just to pile on there, actually, Jeremy, that was the first time I think that we had seen someone call for the drag race community, the queens from Drag Race, to come together to really advocate for a cause and create some change.
Yeah.
And if you viewers who are watching, if you go to our website, dragoutthevote2020.org, and look at the founding story, Jeremy really was the inspiration for Drag Out the Vote, because Queens United was this movement that you started in 2017. It helped me understand that there is a way to bring not just performers from Drag Race, but honestly, this sort of giant community of drag queens who do have the microphones to advocate on behalf of getting people registered and getting people out to vote. And so that's like, you were the first person I called to say, hey, like, could we start something with queens around and drag artists around voting and voter registration?
Well, for me too, it was in my very, very first Meet the Queens, and I look quite different than but in my very first Meet the Queens, the thing that I've said, and I've said this from the get-go, is that like, I want to help. I want to help people. And so I never saw, it's no secret, Drag Race girls make stupid money. They make stupid money. And a lot of that is spent on just frivolous items and purchases, and they're allowed to buy whatever they want with their money. But how amazing would it be for one night, just one night, to come together and donate all that? Like the change that could create for somebody. And so I am that bitch to be like, all right, Who's going to step up to the plate? I will be that person to do that. And sometimes it takes that voice, and it takes someone to stand up and say that, to trigger an effect. And it did. And I'm so grateful that, and it wasn't just Drag Race girls, but
Right.
a lot of the Tiger, were you there at that one?
I was not there at that one.
So Minneapolis had so many, I think there was like 15 local entertainers that did, like they opened the show for us. And I just thought it was really, really, really amazing. And yeah, we raised like, it was like 80 something thousand dollars for Puerto Rico. And it's just powerful, and it's so cool to see like everybody put like whatever fake drama they saw on TV or whatever dramas they actually had, because there was actually people there that had drama in real life. It was so amazing to see them just put that aside and be like, no, we have bigger issues at hand to take care of, so let's do it.
Yeah, it's awesome. And I think maybe things have changed in terms of this, but I know in the past there have been a lot of drag artists who were like, you know what, I don't want to get political. And I think that's changing a little bit, but I wonder what any of you might say to drag performers who are like, I don't want to get political.
I mean, I think it has to kind of do with like the people that you're around. If the people you're around don't want to do anything, or say like the bar has a certain type of view and you work at that bar, that can kind of like cross heads. Everyone's allowed to live their life the way they want or believe what they want. But I think that's one of the things when, for me, I'm always telling people, like, you ain't got a contract. Unless you got a contract, you can say, do whatever you want, but no one's having really that conversation about, like, political views when it comes into the drag scene of people working at bars or the people that we're around.
I mean, you know, I think people need to be political now, especially now. Like, if you aren't political, then that means that you aren't sticking up for your friend who is Black or your neighbor who is Black or anything. Like, it's so much more than just picking a party. Now, I think people have to, and you know. Earlier, a couple weeks ago, on Twitter, Gigi Goode made a tweet that was that she had no idea was insensitive to the George Floyd that just went on, and she said, "I'm so excited I can't breathe." She quickly took it down, but she because she was excited for the finale, but she was just so unaware of the state of the world because she just she's not political. Well, mama, you can't say those things now, mama. Everyone's eyes are on you. Like, people have to be political. And if you're not sticking up for your people, your friends of color or your neighbor or anyone who's of color, then you're not doing it right. Especially a drag queen. Like, especially a drag queen.
There's a privilege in people who get to just not know about those things. And that's the, like, part of the eraser of not talking about political things, having political conversations, bringing up things that need to change for justice and equality. Like, there's a privilege in that. And I think that's one of the things that doesn't get talked about in our community at all, is like the privilege and the way of carrying that burden in our community to do the work.
Yeah, same thing. Like, they're not aware of their surrounding. Texas, San Antonio. Like, I grew up and I wasn't aware. Like, I knew, but I didn't know it was wrong. And that sounds really. I mean, I was a child, so I don't hold anything against me like for that. But like, I grew, obviously. But I do not think, and this is my personal opinions, is that I agree with Britt. This is not the time to stay silent, because silence is complacency, and that is the problem. That's why we're in the predicament that we are in today, because enough people did not speak up. And I know Tyra talked about like people that don't have contracts, or even if you do have a contract, there comes a time where you have to stop and you have to question, when do your morals kick into place, and when do you sit there and say, you know what, I would rather switch my job, or I'd rather work for an employer that's going to respect everyone, whether you're trans, non-binary, a woman, whether you're Black, whether you're a person of color, anything, and say that enough is enough. I'm going to stand on the right side, and I'm going to work and make money for someone that is going to value who we are as people. You know what I mean? It's no secret my opinions and my stance on a lot of issues, and I think one of the most important ones is that speak up. You need to speak up in the face of injustice.
Well, I'm just going to go ahead and say her name, Britta, because you already did. But I was really struck with on season 12 with Gigi Good around the episode, which was the political debate episode, right? And there was that moment in the workroom where she was like, it was something like, you know, I don't like to get political, but also maybe in a confessional, she was like, I don't really know what's going on, so I don't want to speak. And I didn't know if that was, you know, her youth being 21, that she is ill-informed. And I just wonder, as a drag performer who, I just wonder with some of the younger queens if they're or younger artists, if they're understanding their LGBTQ equality history, and just not connecting that with what's going on. So like, how do we help younger drag artists who will have these platforms to like really remember their history and use their platform?
I mean, I think it's important. I think it's important right now for people to say, you know, in the past, when I started to get political, I honestly was not informed. I didn't know. And I felt bad for not knowing. And now is a time where I think that everyone we want you to know. Everyone wants you to know. So I'm personally willing to take the time to educate, to make sure that you do know, and like to realize how much this is affecting you. I mean, I think right now it's a lot about listening to people and listening to either information that they don't know, and if they're willing to know, to teach that to them. Because I know that there's a lot of white people in my circles that just aren't that don't know, but are like open to learning, and also listening, and especially with the Black community. I will give Gigi this, that since Drag Race has ended, she has definitely used her platform towards this movement. She's getting so much more political because of it, and I'm so proud of her for doing that. And you know, it shows growth, and for other drag queens, ask questions. I mean, find the queen that is political, and they will talk to you. I mean, it's amazing that we're having these conversations within our community and with our families. But if you're unsure, and you don't worry, mama, you ain't offending anyone. Like, people are dying. Like, we got to get past that. Ask the questions you need to ask.
Yeah, I think it's important.
I just want to acknowledge, you're right. Gigi really has stepped up recently. So I do want to acknowledge and agree with you.
Oh yeah,
she really has. She's educating. Yeah, sorry, Jeremy.
No, you're fine. I do want to add though, like to say that you just don't know is I feel like an excuse during this day and age. When people have when they're on their phones 24/7 and they can post a like, or they can research their favorite fashion designer to make outfits for TV, or they can know everything about their favorite music artist. If they can take the time to do that, they can take the time to read an article. They could learn a simple 5 facts from like Breonna Taylor's murder. They could take the time if they truly cared to do it. So, and I'm extreme. I'm obviously. But if you, I don't want to hear this excuse that you just don't know what's going on when you can know what's going on, but you choose not to. So I think that's very, very important. You have to want to care, and I wish a lot more do care. And I said this on an interview yesterday. The youth is changing this world, and it's so fucking amazing to see. But there's a lot of youth that doesn't. And I don't think it's intentional. I think there's a lot of youth that are not aware of what Stonewall is, and how trans women of color led this way. There's so many youth that don't know, but they certainly know their favorite artist songs and stuff like this. And I think it would behoove them to just take a step back and read up on it, because we wouldn't be here, and we certainly wouldn't be on this meeting right now, of all skin colors and all backgrounds, talking, if it wasn't for our past.
And Tigra, any thoughts about like, how do we help younger artists and just LGBTQ people in general understand the history and want to learn more?
Yeah, honest, I don't have, like, they said it, like Jeremy and Britta both said it, and I agree with both of their statements. And I wish that our history was taught on a larger scale, where the youth had a way to take part in what happened and what is going on now. And like, even for the ones who are struggling in high school to find their sense of community, they're not even able to be a part of a lot of the LGBTQ things that happen when you're 21, you know, because we have a lot of events at bars and they're not able to be a part of that, you know? So like, if that was able to be changed in a lot of ways, I think that would help as well, just because they don't know our community until they're of age to be a part of the community. And a lot of people are not in homes that are accepting of this type of community either. So like, you end up hiding a lot of your political views, a lot of your ideas and thoughts of who you are, and that kind of goes into that break point when you actually get into the community. You're trying to find not just the source of like yourself, but also what's happening right then and now, and everything's changing so quickly.
And
Yeah.
and to agree with what Britta said too, ask questions. And I've said that before. It's ask questions. No, we want to help and we want to educate and we want you to know who you are and where you come from. Like, we want that, but there's a difference in telling people what you think you know and versus being like, hey, I'm sorry, and ignorant is not a bad word. I'm ignorant on many things, and people use ignorance as an insult. I don't know a lot of stuff, and that's okay. And if you don't know it, just ask. Simply ask.
Yeah, I appreciate all of that. Let's turn into a little more around voting. Britta brought up earlier, and this is one of the reasons why I started Drag Out the Vote. I was really shocked at, you know, how many people in 2016, 100 million people did not vote. Britta, you brought up 1 in 5 LGBTQ adults are not registered to vote or don't vote. And also, speaking of the youth turnout had a historic high in the 2018 midterms of only 35%.
Girl.
So how can we continue to send messages to our friends and family and your followers, your audiences, to activate voting populations who historically aren't turning out?
I'm sorry, hold on, I didn't hear. What was the turnout for the youth?
In the midterms of midterms are usually low, but in 2018, youth turnout was 35%. And we know every election is important, especially for local elections. So like, how can we continue to send out messages that we should be voting, you know, every year, not just in presidential years?
Well, it's going to go back to what I said before. When you see things that are being challenged, I think there will always be people that, like, for instance, a wolf in sheep's clothing. There will always be people that do stuff and are elected to office, and then we find out who they are. But we can't figure that out unless we start voting. You know what I mean? We can't figure out who these people are and what they stand for until we start voting. And then, if you know what, if it happens to be that person is not a positive contribution to society and our community and our country, then we weed them out and get to the next one until we realize and establish a positive force for us. And that might happen every year. You might have to get rid of people, and that's okay. It's a process that we have to do to create change.
I mean, I think right now with the movement, a lot more people are caring about their and with the pandemic. Like, a lot of people are certain people aren't getting certain things, and I mean, and they're realizing that the thing that they need to do in order for change is that they need to vote. And I think it's taking a pandemic and a Black Lives Matter movement to get people to care. Finally, when people start losing things, their jobs, when people start losing food, healthcare, things like that, like
lives,
they start to get riled up. And I'm glad that people are riled up, because that will initiate more voting. It's sad that it had to come down to this, but also, like, just go. Even watching this, like, go right now to dragoutthevote2020.org, and baby, you can register to vote right there. It takes one click to just go ahead and register, and to get it in, and then you'll be good to go when it comes time, honey.
That was good, Mitch.
That was a good plug.
We're going to cut that out and use that for a PSA. We have like 5 from you, Britta. There's going to be a 6th one there.
That was good.
That's awesome. I do want to mention something we were talking about earlier, that, you know, members of this panel right here are members that intersect a lot of multiple minority communities, and these are communities who have been marginalized in terms of voting. And I wonder if what you guys feel needs to be done in order to protect the right to vote for these communities. Any thoughts?
First, I would just say to keep the misinformed informed. That's like one of the number one things for me, is just people who don't know what's going on, don't have any awareness of what's going on in the Black community, you know, trying to keep an open window that we can have a discussion on it. I can direct you to the right source. These are the X, Y, and Z publications or funds that are doing the great work, the great cause that this might interest you. I think that's the best thing for me that I've done within my community, especially since I'm not out there right now and I'm home.
I have a question, Tigra, and I've seen this a lot on my social media. I want to know your thoughts on this, because I've seen mixed messages from the Black community as far as telling others that they should do the research for themselves.
Yeah.
But what are your thoughts, like when someone that's not Black or a person of color really has taken the opportunity or the time to really research what they can do better, and they just don't, they still don't know. Do you find it okay that they can ask either a person of color or a Black person specifically what they can do to help?
Yeah, of course. I think that's definitely okay. I think what happens there is that Black people, especially Black women, are so stressed by the amount of answers that the community expects them to have. Yeah. And I think that's what the response mostly is when we're saying, okay, that's great that I just sat here and educated you for an hour and a half on like why Black Lives Matter is such a thing. But if you don't take the instance to do any work for yourself and you're just going to come back to me and ask me the exact same questions, that is where that blockage is this that you have to have the will to want to do it yourself. There has to be something echoing in your mind that's like, okay, great, they just sat here and talked to me about X, Y, and Z, and now I'm not going to take X, Y, and Z. I'm going to come back and just regurgitate what you just said to me and ask you to do more work.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where that pushback mostly is. I don't think anybody in the Black community is saying, don't ask us. It's more as if we already educated you and told you, you should take that and use it in some type of way to get you to the next point that you need to be at. But Perfect. If you feel still misinformed, I don't think anybody has an issue of re-educating. It just takes that one time for somebody to be like, well, if you're not listening, then why am I wasting my time?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Okay, cool.
Gotcha. Thank you, Jeremy. So we're coming to the end. So just a couple more questions. I know it's really, really hard to look beyond 2020, but if we don't capture all this energy and keep it going, you know, I think we won't have harnessed everything. So in terms of like after the 2020 election and local elections and midterms moving forward, how do you think we get people staying involved, and how do we stay involved to keep going?
I think you got to get people excited to do it, and you know, politics might be very boring for a lot of people, and it is. But I personally feed off people, and this goes with like drag entertainers too. I feed off of a good, like someone that's up there really lip syncing and like into it and giving their all. And that inspires me to be like, you know what, I want to perform. I want to get up and make up and do that. I get so inspired and feeding. Synergy is real. And you feed off of that. So if we're out here as like staples in the community, getting people register to vote, I think we do have a moral obligation to get people excited and present all the positives that are going to come from when you are involved in everything. So I just think we just got to keep this excitement up and this passion going. So I don't think it's going to stop though. I think I feel, and I told you last night, I just feel so good about this. Like this movement just feels great. And it's because I'm surrounding myself and my social media. I've taken it upon myself to weed out people that I don't need there. But I've decided I just want in my circle people that I can feed off of to keep this momentum going and inspire others.
Really generous. But I'm looking at you, Britt and Tegra.
I think one of the things that's really changing is that like a lot of people have figured out that the youth are really like the people who don't really understand or know their political power that they have. And I've seen a lot of organizations use that power in talking to the youth and letting them know like you actually have a voice and you can use it. Because I know when I was 17, 18, getting into that time where I could be, no one informed me that I could, and I didn't vote until I think I was later on in life. I'm not going to calculate that. But I think like putting the power into those hands of the younger and the youth, and since they're doing so much wanting to be involved, I think that will keep the momentum going as well.
I mean, I also, to piggyback off of what Jeremy said, you know, I specifically, I want to get excited, exactly how you see a drag performer. I want to see a politician who gets me excited. I want to root for that person, and I want that person to bring us together. And you know, looking back at like past president speeches during this week, and trying to find unity within our country. I mean, that's what shit like that excites me. Like, I get excited. I was like, yes, we gotta get together, and you know, people that are listening to us and understand us. I mean, I think that's I need a person who wants to lead me, who will give me, who will give it to me the way that I want it, and it'll make me excited to be even more involved.
Yeah.
And that cares. I think that's important. Yeah, I'm tired of people in office calling us names, saying that one person is better than the other. I'm just tired of it, and I think it's time that all people that are in office should only be in office if they genuinely listen, care, and want to help make this world better.
Amen. Well, hopefully folks will look for the candidates that support what they support and will vote for those candidates, so that those are the candidates we'll have in office. So I want to kind of just wrap up in terms of looking forward for this year. You know, what is your, you could just go around the panel. What is your hope for this year, either professionally or personally?
I really hope to perform my second show as a RuPaul's Drag Race girl sometime this year, hopefully. If not, I understand, and I'll definitely wait for next year, hopefully before 13 comes out. But I'm really hoping to perform as a Drag Race girl and make that money that Jeremy talks about.
I don't know what you're talking about. So I gotta let you go.
I think one of the biggest things for me is just creating just a safe space for trans and non-binary youth to be able to be a part of a community they don't have experience in. Working with Andrea Jenkins, who's our council member here, she has a great platform where she's really encouraging a lot of voices to come in and take part in a conversation where trans and non-binary people are usually not a part of. And that's one of the things that I am glad to be a part of, in helping them along the way, and still working with Flip Phone and creating great drag and great shows. And hopefully we can get Jeremy and Britta here again and experience the city of Minneapolis.
I love Minneapolis, so y'all know I will always.
Y'all,
I love Minneapolis. So I was talking to Jackie last night about how much like all of you, and we've worked together, and I just like, you guys are so positive and amazing over there, and it's really like a family away from home, and so I love you guys so much, and I really hope you guys are staying as safe as possible and taking care of each other. So for me and my future, as far as politically, I can't say where it's gonna go. I just know that I'm going to be on the side of defending and standing up for what's right. So whatever that issue may be, and so and it will be dealt with at that point in time. I don't plan on stopping. But as far as like just like my personal career, I am slowly exiting away from using just the Fifi name, as we can see in here, and it's just gonna be Jeremy, and I've decided that I for me personally, I used Fifi as a like a mask to be able to do things that I could have done as Jeremy the entire time, and I didn't realize that. And so I will be loving myself as Jeremy more and doing a lot more opportunities as just Jeremy. So yeah.
That's awesome.
Also,
Well,
one little thing I want to throw
yeah,
in,
go ahead.
besides wanting to work the gigs, I also, while sheltering in place, and since I'm unable to protest, I'm doing online shows every single week, and either ticket sales or a certain section of the show, all the money is going to this movement currently. So, I mean, I'm trying to do my part from home. I donated $100 to a friend who was like, I'm gonna go get water bottles for everyone. I was like, here's, baby, go get those water bottles, and you gotta feed them on the line. Unfortunately, since I can't be there, but I'm definitely doing my part at home, and I will continue to throughout this year.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I think that's really important that she brought that up too, because a lot of people right now feel like, what do I do? What do I do? I can't go out and march. I can't go out and I don't know what's gonna happen by the time people are gonna watch this. But it costs literally 0 cents to either retweet, to share, to sign a petition, to make a post, to put up a story on your Instagram, to put a Snapchat. I don't like TikTok, but if that's what you're gonna keep and you're gonna do, it's zero. It costs $0 to do all that stuff, and you never know. You never know who you're gonna reach. Like Queens United, that was one tweet. One tweet got that triggered, and so many people saw it. I think follower counts and numbers put a false value on who you are and what you can bring to the table. And I just want more people to realize that your voice is powerful. Use it. Even if you have no money or anything, one tweet, one thing could change the world.
Everybody has a position in this.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I love that. Well, thank you guys so much, all of you, for being part of this and for using your platforms as artists to advocate for people to get involved, to be activists in their own way. And so I know you said follower counts don't matter, but I do want folks to follow y'all. So because I love that you use your platform. So could you please share with us really quickly where folks can follow you?
Let me hold it. When I say follower counts don't matter, it's because people put a voice that is not verified or a check badge. I don't want people to mistake that for thinking that they can't use their voice. So yes, I think it's great to follow. I would love you to follow me because I'm going to do my best to keep you informed. Same with, I know Tiger and Britta are going to do the same as well. Same with, they should follow Drag Out the Vote so that we can get registered and everything like that. But don't ever for a minute think that you're, because I have, X hundred thousands of followers and you have 3, that your voice doesn't matter and only mine does. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you for clarifying. I was just making a joke. So,
jokes are funny, Jackie. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm not the entertainer here. As you can see, my joke was not funny. So let us know where we can follow you.
You can find me at the Britta Filter on all forms of social media.
You can find me Tiger Thundercat on all social media as well.
So mine's in the transition of changing. So I don't know what at the time. Hopefully it'll change by now. But we're trying to change all of my social medias to Jeremy. But currently, it's Fifi O'Hara still. So you can find me, and it's all the same on every platform.
Awesome. And folks can follow us at Drag Out the Vote on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And we want to remind people to check your registration and register to vote. Go to dragoutothevote2020.org. Press the register to vote button. Y'all, this has been for Seattle Pride. So Seattle Pride, thank you so much for having all of us from all over the country being able to talk about important things like drag and activism. So thank you, Seattle Pride, and thank you to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.